welcome to the Infiniti Inspiration is Contagious live chat here from the Final Four in New Orleans. We're just a few hours away from the tip-off of the national championship game. Thank you for joining Coaches versus Cancer, the National Association of Basketball Coaches, Sports Illustrated, and Infiniti for continuing the fight against cancer. We have a wonderful hour coming up for you. We'll interview two of the premier college basketball coaches in the country. Let me introduce our distinguished panel. He took over at his alma mater in 2005, and he's coming off his 6th straight NCAA tournament appearance. He's a 2-time Big Ten champion and a 3-time Big Ten Coach of the Year. Give it up for Purdue's coach, Matt Painter, everybody. He just wrapped up his 13th year as head coach of San Diego State. The Aztecs have appeared in 5 NCAA tournaments under his tenure. In 1989, he won a national championship as the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines and appeared in back-to-back NCAA finals with the Fab Five. Just one of 7 coaches to win an NCAA championship and NIT championship. Everyone, San Diego State's Steve Fisher. All right, I'm going to open it up with a very easy one for you guys. What have you thought of the tournament so far?
Well, I think obviously when you're in the tournament, you want to keep winning, and when you get knocked off, it's very difficult. It's actually difficult to continue watching because it hurts. You want to advance, you want to keep winning. We had a tough loss to Kansas, but there's a lot of parity in college basketball, and you'll see a lot of teams that go to the NIT, that could go to the Sweet 16 or even the Elite 8. Last year we had a great example of that with VCU. Didn't think they were going to get in, got in, won 5 games, and went to a Final Four. But this tournament's been great. Anytime you can get on that neutral court with good teams going head-to-head, you're going to see a lot of excitement.
I think, Maggie, most NCAA tournaments, teams have to get lucky to, get all the way through these rounds, get to a Final Four, and cut nets down. And as much as I have respect for Kansas and Bill Self, I think Kentucky's going to have to get unlucky not to cut nets down in this tournament today.
You just made the crowd of Big Blue here very happy. We know who's watching this. So, Coach, do you agree? Do you feel like Kentucky is the team to beat here tonight?
Well, yes, I think everybody would agree to that. But Kansas just has to be good for 2 hours. This isn't best out of 7. It's one game. They have a crack. They've proven that they can beat some of the best teams in the country. Now, can they beat the best team in the country? Everybody's going to go with Kentucky. I would rather see Kansas win. We got beat by Kansas. I'd rather get beat by the national champion.
The debate has been out there that perhaps this Kentucky team is one of the best that we've seen in a while. Do you guys agree with that?
I think Kentucky is a phenomenal team, and they're 3 freshmen and 2 sophomores, and they don't play like freshmen and sophomores. They are unselfish, they share the ball, they play with no agenda, and Anthony Davis is good, a big man. And I was with Bill Walton yesterday, and he said he's the best big man he's seen in 10 years. I said he's the best big man since Bill Walton. He's absolutely sensational.
That is a huge honor for him. I know he's been compared to Bill Russell, or saying Tim Duncan. Do you agree, Coach?
Well, obviously he's very good, and his impact in 1 year is pretty impressive. I think it's one of the best young teams we've seen in a long time. I think we'd have to go back to Coach Fisher's teams in the early 90s with the Fab Five. Is that a great team? No doubt about it. Did they win it? No, they didn't win it, but it was a great young team. I think that's kind of the comparison right now. If they can win it all, they separate themselves from a lot of those young teams that have come through. But normally in this situation, you're going to see a junior or a senior or a couple of juniors and seniors, and right now they have Darius Miller, and then they have Lamb as a sophomore, but a lot of those other guys are true freshmen, and that's pretty impressive.
I mean, you both have experience coaching young teams. Coach, obviously, the Fab Five was a very young team both of those years. You had the baby Boilers. What is the most difficult part when you have a young team, but they are so superiorly talented? What is the challenge of coaching that kind of team?
I think just as we said before, you have to have the ability to mesh all the egos and mesh all the individualism into a team concept. And it's easier said than done. And yet, if you have good people that you're dealing with, usually that can happen. what oftentimes occurs in an event like this is the first time you come, you're awestruck with the experience, the people, the magnitude of everything that's there. And if you're the favorite, I think if you look up and it's late in the game and you see it's close, you then say, uh-oh, and the pressure can build on you, which I think happened a little bit in the Louisville game when they tied it, and I think if Kansas can keep it close and find a way to make them look up for 3 or 4 minutes with either team having a chance to win, then you'll see whether the freshmen play like freshmen.
Well, I think the two things you want is talent and experience. But if you had to pick, and John Calipari talks about this a lot, you take talent. You take talent any day of the week, and that's what they have. But I think Coach made a great point about the game getting close. They've been in a lot of close games. They've won a lot of close games. Are they still freshmen at this point? I would say no. But when you are the favorite, like you said, it is a little bit different. That game gets close and it gets going down there. You've got to still play your game. You've got to still make good decisions. And it's going to be important, because I think that's Kansas's game plan. Fewer possessions. Let's keep it close. Let's use some of that experience coming down the stretch and then make plays at the end.
I mean, Coach, you know what that's like to have a team that's very young but also be favored in some ways with that 5-5 team. Is there advice that you would give to this Kentucky team before they take the floor tonight about when the moment is on and if the game is close, about what they should do?
Better not call a timeout. I would tell them that.
I wasn't going to say it.
They don't need any advice. Calipari knows what he's doing, as does Bill Self. And this is an event that every coach, every player dreams since he's old enough to bounce the ball to participate in. And when you get here, you want to maximize your opportunities, because you don't know. It doesn't matter whether everybody's back or nobody's back. This is no guarantee that you will ever have an opportunity to be here again, and so you have to take advantage of your moment and play unafraid, play the way you played since the season began in early October.
You know, interesting debate that's been going on the last couple of days, and this theory that's been floated out there that, you know, if Kentucky wins, it could be bad for basketball because the players are one-and-done players, so to speak. Do you guys think that John Calipari gets unduly vilified for almost being the face of one-and-done when it actually goes on a lot of other places?
Well, I think he's been very smart in the fact that he's embraced it. It's very similar to the market. Nobody in this room sets the market, it sets itself. John Calipari didn't invent one and done. There's been guys going to college for 1 year and leaving for many years. It's more common now, especially with the rule change. Guys can't go straight out of high school, but I think he's embraced it. He's at a place where he can get top-tier talent, so it's going to happen. It's going to be more frequent, and I think he's just done a good job with it. You go to college to better your situation, to get an education, to start your career. That's what everybody goes to college for. After 9 months, if you have the opportunity that some of those young men do, it makes a whole lot of sense for them to go forward. Some guys are going pro early that shouldn't go pro early. Most of his guys that have made that decision to do it, I think a lot of people would agree that, it makes sense for them to go pro.
Yeah.
I think John Calipari has done a great job selling where he is, what Kentucky has to offer. He doesn't have to say, well, come and wait in line. He's coming and saying, come, and if you're good enough, you'll do what Wall did. You'll do what Anthony Davis did. You'll do what all these other guys have done. You're hypocritical if you would say you're not going to recruit and take any of these young guys that John Calipari has on his team. He's a masterful recruiter. He's a very, very effective basketball coach, and he's sold Kentucky the winningest program in college basketball history, and that's a pretty good vehicle to ride it.
Yeah, you also got to give Coach Cal credit. I had the opportunity 2 out of the last 3 summers to coach Darius Miller. The 19 and unders in New Zealand, and then last year in the World University Games in China. Here's a guy that's really developed. He attended Kentucky. He went there. Each year he's gotten a little bit better. He comes off the bench for them. But, he's made unbelievable improvements, and he's developed, and he's a 4-year guy, and he'll get his degree. And so, you know, if that's the case and that's the only way to go through Kentucky, then how has this guy been so successful? So he's proven he can make it work both ways.
Yeah, the entire Kentucky team has said just how important he is to have in that locker room. He's really one of the glue guys. I want to ask you guys something that coaches themselves, I feel like, may not be that comfortable talking about, and it's legacies. Some people have suggested that this game tonight could have a big impact on the legacies of Bill Self if he can win his second national championship, or John Calipari if he can win his first with that very young lineup. Do you guys see it that way, that perhaps some legacies are at stake tonight?
I think you worry about what you can control, and obviously Bill Self is, both of these guys are terrific coaches. Bill Self has had the opportunity, the privilege, the good fortune, with a little bit of luck, to have won a national championship. John Calipari has been here before, almost, but not quite. These are two coaches that I don't think are saying, boy, if we win a national championship, if we win another national championship, I'm going to cement a Hall of Fame career. I don't think any of them view it that way.
Well, I think they're both in great positions no matter what happens. You know, they're in Final Fours. They're winning conference championships. They've both been very consistent. We had a chance to play Kansas. I didn't realize that they won their league 8 straight times. Winning the Big 12 8 straight times. Maybe it's 9 now. I don't even know. But I looked on top of them, on the front of their media guide, their postseason media guide. That's impressive. Not too many people can say in any league, let alone in a BCS league, that they've won it 8 straight times. And then obviously what they've been able to do at Kentucky speaks for itself.
We're going to change gears just a little bit, and I want to talk to you guys a little bit about your own paths to how you've gotten to be so successful and where you are now. And I'll just start with a general question. Where does the desire to coach come from? Because it seems like a coach is born a coach. Is that true?
Well, I don't know if that's the case, but I'm old enough to have coached him, and probably old enough to be his dad. But my dad was my first coach. It didn't feel like work. My dad wanted to be a coach. World War II got in the way, did everything but student teach, and he pined to do what I'm doing. And my high school yearbook, nicknamed Fish, likes psychology and trig, dislikes getting up in the morning, plans to be teacher coach. I knew when I was 15 years old I was going to be a teacher. And this is what we do. Coaching is teaching, and it doesn't matter what level you are. Matt came in an era down the road. He may have said, I know I want to be a college coach. I said, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a coach. I could have been a high school coach for my entire career. I was for 11 years and been immensely happy. Things happen along the path of what you do that allow you to have opportunities, and I've been very fortunate with some opportunities I've had.
So I just want to follow up on that for a second, because I saw something interesting that you had said, where you said you would have been perfectly happy being a math teacher, being a high school coach, or being an assistant. What made you take the risk, essentially, of going out there to take a low-level assistant job at first and really get out of your comfort zone?
I've told people, when I left our high school job, I had just gotten married, we had our first son, bought our first house. We were digging that rut pretty good every year, making good money, both of us with master's degrees. I went because the same person that hired me for my first high school job became head coach at Western Michigan, Les Whitney. That's why I went. And half the pay, but I said, I know I can always find my way back to a high school position. Let's try this. We weren't afraid to step away and say, let's take a little bit of a risk, even though it really wasn't a risk.
Coach?
Well, I'm always very similar. I always wanted to coach. It's a little bit different. Actually, when I got recruited in high school, that was one of my questions. Coming into my living room and sitting down was, after I'm done playing, you know, can I be on your staff? Can I be a GA? Is that a possibility? So I tried to flip.
You set the seed even before you took the court.
I tried to flip it a little bit. I knew I wasn't going to be an NBA player, and they actually removed the GA at that time. They started to have the restrictions in the early 90s. They went to the third assistant, or the restricted earnings assistant. I don't know the actual timetable of it, but probably the best thing that happened to me was that I didn't have that opportunity. I was able to leave Purdue, where you get spoiled at a high level as a player.
Yeah.
You know, you're on charter flights, you're staying at Marriott's, you're eating at St. Elmo's Steakhouse, and I went to Division III. right outside of Pittsburgh, a small school called Washington Jefferson, and it was a great experience for me. You could recruit, you could scout, you didn't get paid, but it was great for me. You're in vans, and then I was able to go Division III, Division II, a couple low major jobs, and I got very fortunate to be able to get with Rick Samuels at Eastern Illinois, and then I was with Bruce Weber at Southern Illinois, and then Coach Katie, big break in my career, would bring me back when he retired and then take over Purdue. So I've been very, very lucky. I think Coach talked about kind of chasing your dream a little bit, but you also, as a team, you have to be lucky. But as a coach, I've been awful lucky and fortunate to get a couple breaks.
From the outside perspective, it just seems like there are those moments that happen in a person's career that just change the course of where they're going. Can you go back to 1989 when you got the call to become the head coach before the conference tournament and you ultimately took Michigan to win a national title? Can you put yourself back in that moment?
What happened to me always happened to somebody else. And then all of a sudden it happened to me. Well documented, 1989, we were on the eve of going to Atlanta for our first round NCAA tournament game. And Bill Frieder pulled me aside after practice and said, you'll take the team to Atlanta, I'll meet you there. I'm going to get on a red eye and fly to Phoenix and be introduced as the Arizona State coach. I had no idea until he had told me that that was going to happen. In fact, Gene Cady was the guy that was rumored to be going to Arizona State. And when Cady said, I'm not interested, they turned to Bill and he took the job and they didn't let him coach the team. They made me the interim coach. And on the strength of Glenn Rice's jump shot and Real Mabus's free throw, won 6 games and cut the nets down. And it was an unbelievable experience that never happened. And it happened to me.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I was a senior in high school when that happened. And before it got moved to Coach Frieder and that decision, I'm sitting in 5th period and my high school coach comes and gets me out of class and said, Gene Cady is going to take the Arizona State job, and would you have interest in making a visit there? And I hadn't signed with Purdue yet, and I was going to make a visit. I said, you know what, I really like that staff, but I'll promise you that I'll visit. So he lets me go back into class. 20 minutes later, a Ball State assistant had called my high school coach and said, Gene Cady took the Arizona State job, and Rick Majerus is going to go to Purdue. And I lived in Muncie, Indiana, where Ball State was, and I loved Coach Majerus. But I didn't want to stay in Muncie, Indiana, so I always told him that. You know, I love you guys. I'd like to play for you, Coach Majerus, but I'm not going to play for you at Ball State. It's not going to happen. And so at that time, I said, no question about it, I'll visit Purdue. And then a day later, he doesn't take the job, and then this happens right here. And it's very ironic we're sitting here together, but that story, that did happen. I was able to get the Southern Illinois job. It's very ironic, somebody else's decision that leads to you getting an opportunity. But Coach Williams at Kansas had the tough decision of whether he goes back to North Carolina or he doesn't. He obviously chooses to do so. Coach Self then leaves Illinois and goes to Kansas. Bruce Weber, who was the head coach at Southern Illinois and I was his assistant, then goes from Southern Illinois to Illinois, and then I get the head coaching job at Southern Illinois at age 32. But if Coach Williams stays, I'm still the assistant at Southern Illinois. So it's kind of interesting how a couple of decisions can really be a major break for the next guy.
Yeah, the
Convoluted. I wish I had known he was vacillating. I would have recruited him like crazy at Michigan after Katie even said he was coming back.
There was a chance, right? You know, you bring up an interesting point when you talk about the information and misinformation. How you only found out that Bill was going to take the job on the eve of the tournament. In this day and age, with Twitter and Facebook and everything happening so quickly, can you imagine that happening now? You would be rumored, there'd be rumors flying for weeks before anything actually happened.
I wouldn't have my coach pull me out, I'd just look on my phone.
Yeah, right.
You
get an update.
Right in front of you.
How does that affect your recruiting your teams now? Because this is really something that you didn't have to deal with 10 years ago.
We live in an age now where everybody knows what you're doing before you do it. And that's why it's so important that you have the ability to be responsible and then be accountable for your actions. And it's never easy. Years ago, not even years ago, when Matt played, people didn't know things that went on in programs. You deal with stuff internally, you discipline, you move on, and it's nobody's business but the programs. And today, It's reported at 17 different outlets exactly what happened, where you were, why it happened, and who you were with. And so it makes things a little more complicated in our world, but it is the world that we live in.
You have to be very proactive. I think the education part from your sports information director, bringing in media people to educate them, go through some mock situations. We just go through different situations, trying to help. We take our guys off Twitter during the year, but you still have access to a lot of different things from a technology standpoint. So you just do your best to be proactive and really educate them, because if it's going to happen, people are going to know in a split second.
I think it's kind of fitting that we wrap up this part of the interview talking about technology, because now we're going to move to the user questions that people have been putting on Facebook and from the audience. They're getting piped in right here into this iPad, so if you have some questions, there's probably still time. You can submit them for these coaches, and I'll just start off with the first one here. You kind of mentioned it earlier on, but it just says, who do you think is going to win the big game tonight? And I think you guys both think Kentucky, am I right?
Yes, I would think that Kentucky wins it, but some things, have to happen, I think, to get to that point for Kansas. I think Kansas has to be able to get in transition a little bit and be selective and set the tempo of the game. They don't want it up and down, but when it does happen, guys like Tyshawn Taylor, they got to take advantage of that and really attack. But they got to be smart how they attack Anthony Davis. Going at him is very important, but you got to be smart when you go at him. You got to get into his body. If you allow space, then they got to draw help. If you watch penetrating pitch and you watch Anthony Davis, you got to draw him, and then you got to be able to make his guy, knock down some shots and just try to spread some things out. So it's going to be interesting. Foul trouble will be interesting, and I think tempo will be interesting.
Coach, our next question is for you. It's from Steve, who I believe is out there in the audience. He says, is San Diego State University going to be the next Gonzaga? And I think what he means by that is one of those mid-major programs that consistently makes the tournament and gets that Cinderella title every year.
I don't know whether we're going to be Gonzaga or not. They have been a power in their league for a number of years. We've become pretty good. We've won over 20 games for 7 straight years. A year ago, we were rated as high as 4th or 5th in the country. Came within a whisker of beating Connecticut in the Sweet 16. So we have a program that we're very proud of, and I think that we will now have the ability, living in San Diego, at a phenomenal campus in San Diego State, to recruit the kinds of players who need to win at any level. You can't come to me and say, well, I have a guy, he can't play at Purdue for Painter, but he can play for, I can't have those guys. I have to recruit the same kinds of players that Matt recruits, and we're doing that, and we're having success getting enough of them to be competitive. So I think we have a chance to continue to be good, but we do have a program, and I'll underline that, and we're very proud of it.
And it's something that really didn't exist until you got on campus and took over. It's been phenomenal. The next question is for both of you guys. It comes from Addison. It just says, how do you inspire your players?
Well, I think it's a little bit different, probably for each guy. Coach talked about a program. I think that's important. If you have a good program, I think you got to have a good balance. Understanding what you're there for, your education. They're there to make it work 2 ways, make it through their education and through basketball. And just trying to make them see the big picture, and also, why not me, kind of that philosophy. Why can't we win this game? Why can't we upset a top team? I was in low to mid-major basketball for a long time. After a while, you're like, throw out that tag. A tag doesn't mean anything. If you can play, you can play. And so for us, inspiring them, we all try to use the underdog role when we can. When it applies, we all use it. And just trying to get them to believe that together we can accomplish a lot of things. And we might have a lot of talent, but individually we're not going to get it done. And just together, as teammates and as friends, we can win this thing.
Coach, how do you inspire your team?
I think you have to have young men that are self-motivated. You have to have people that are self-driven. And they have to know the value of preparation and practice and what it means to prepare when nobody's watching. And it's easy to say, hard to do. We have certain things that are constants in our We have certain things we do every single day, some that are fundamental related, some that are mental related. And we start every practice at midcourt with a thought of the day. And we usually try to take a thought that will apply to either what just happened or what we think should happen. And then I ask the players to comment on what we've just said. And one of them is very important to whether it's inspired to grow your program. Don't make me coach after. You have to be. If I'm like a gym teacher and all I'm doing is saying, you got to go harder, you have to go harder, then I'm not doing you a service, nor are you doing me a service. So we talk about these things, and then like Matt, we film every practice. We break down, I might take you if you're playing for me, Maggie, and we'll...
My jump shot is not very good.
Well, no, you're not going to shoot, you're going to be a screener and defender.
Okay, I can do that.
And show you things that you're doing that you like, and show you things that you need to improve on, and then let you evaluate, you would come back. So I think in today's world, there's so many things you can do to help a young person get better.
Our next one is for Coach Painter. Can you talk about what Robbie Hummel has meant for Purdue?
Robbie Hummel's been great. Probably the thing that jumps out is the adversity that he's experienced. He never really, made excuses. He never, I think you go through a period of time where you feel sorry for yourself when something like that happens. He probably felt sorry for himself for a day or two and just kind of jumped back into rehab. But very proud of him. He won the Lowe's Senior Class Award without trying to get it, just being himself. And he has great parents. He's always wanted Purdue to win. He was first team All-League as a freshman, which is very hard to do in our league. And after the season, he said, I would have been happy if I played 10 to 15 minutes. And he kind of shook my head like, you're a pretty good player. You're going to play more than 10 to 15 minutes. But that really was his approach. He just wanted to come in, help Purdue win. And he's been great. He's really set the bar high on how you handle yourself. And the best way I can describe him is he's a professional before he was a professional. He comes early, he stays late, he tries to listen to the coaches, he leads by example every single day.
And can you just describe what it's like when you have a player that stays with you for 4 years, in Robbie's case for 5 years on campus, and what the relationship becomes like between coach and player at that point?
I want to piggyback Matt's comment. I don't know Robbie Hummel, but I watched from afar how he handled his career and situation at Purdue. And I was so impressed with just what Matt said, with the way he handled himself, never feeling sorry, saying, why me, Lord, and went on to do what he had to do to get a chance to play. What I like to do when I watch other programs, and this is why Matt's so good and Purdue's so good, I watch his teams when they play. And when kids come on and off the floor, you can tell the character of kids on how they act and react when they're not in the game. And his kids, and Robbie Hummel in particular, exemplify what we all shoot for, a true team player that when he's not in there, he's in the game. And he is up cheering for his teammates. And once again, that's what we all aspire to have, but you don't always have that on your team with every kid in the program. When you do, you win.
I know you guys have both been involved with Coaches versus Cancer. This question is Andrew. He's asking from Facebook, how has Infiniti's partnership with Coaches versus Cancer benefited the organization?
Well, I think any company, any business that's piggybacked with Coaches versus Cancer, we do an event with Illinois. We start the season for Coaches versus Cancer, and anybody who's been affected, by the disease and been touched by it, almost everybody here can say that. Just trying to fight and do a little part and try to help, and we've really built the event, and it's been unbelievable. Really, Bruce Weber spearheaded it when he was at Illinois. Now he's the Kansas State coach, but it's an event that we'll continue to do. Hopefully, I don't know how we're going to do it now, but it's just anytime you have any corporation or any business that's piggyback to jump in for Coaches versus Cancer, I think it finds a way into all of our hearts because we know how important this is.
I think Infiniti has stepped up and put its money where its mouth is, and got involved in events, got involved in cancer awareness programs, and to raise funds for cancer. like many people, I'm a cancer survivor. I'm a prostate cancer survivor, and I think Infiniti has joined the cause to say this is a disease that we can find a cure for. We want to help. We want to be on a forum where we can put people in positions to listen and learn and to be aware of things you can do. Cancer prevention, cancer awareness, all of those things. And Infiniti's done a great job partnering up with a lot of organizations, including coaching organizations.
We only have time, I think, just one last very, very quick question for both of you guys. If you could just give me, I would love to know, what's your favorite Final Four moment? If you have one that sticks out in your mind, you have one that speaks to you, and that will be kind of, we'll go out on that question. Who wants to take it, Coach?
I'll go first. Coach has been in the Final Four, so he's going to draw that. He's won it, and you know, I go to the games, and I've never been to the Final Four. That's our goal, is to go to a Final Four and win a national championship. And so, kind of just continue to go to the games for me, keep that goal out there, and it can be done. It's hard though, like Coach talked about. You gotta have a good team, gotta have a little bit of luck. Something's got to go your way, but every year going to the games is pretty. Kind of motivates me to go back to our team and say, hey, that's where we want to be. I don't have one yet.
I was going to say, so maybe your favorite moment hasn't happened yet. Yeah. All right, we'll take that. Coach, I think I know what you're going to say, but yeah.
I'm a Brody Perdue now. I'm a big-time Gene Keady fan. One of the greatest coaches ever. Never had a chance to take a team to a Final Four, but he's a Hall of Fame coach. And, you know, in today's world, too many people define success by winning the national championship. It doesn't define success. This is the epitome of what we all aspire to. Some great coaches who mentor and teach immensely well never get the opportunity to be here. I think if you get here early as a young guy, you may not appreciate it quite as much as if you get here at a time when you say, I know how fortunate I am. So obviously I've had teams that have gone to 3. It's a 180, the feeling you have when you are cutting the nets down after winning, as we did in 1989, and when you're crying as a group in the locker room after 92 and 93. It's what we do. The emotions are there, and unless you live it like we do, you can't truly appreciate what it means.
This has been so great. Thank you guys so much. Everyone, please put your hands together for Matt Painter of Purdue and Steve Fisher of San Diego State. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.